Hello, everyone. A very warm good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today's topic is next generation procurement automation, integrating Gen AI and ServiceNow. In our webinar series, this time we are going after a specific vertical, and we are going to talk about what is going on. We're going to take a deep dive into the procurement space. We're going to look at some of the exciting things that are happening within the space and how a combination of ServiceNow and Gen AI is disrupting this particular area. My name is Narendran Thelesthanam. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at WNS-Vuram. Joining me today is Vikram Goyal. Vikram is the Senior Director, and he is also the Head of ServiceNow Center of Excellence. Pleasure connecting with all of you. So what are we going to talk about? Obviously, we'll have a quick introduction to who we are, what do we do at WNS-Vuram, and then we'll look at the broader landscape in terms of what is going on in the procurement process. What are some of the key challenges that customers are facing? And then we'll make a case for why do we need a high quality procurement platform? And we're going to articulate how ServiceNow is solving or bringing to bear the various tenets of procurement, modern procurement automation. We'll look at the role of Gen AI and AI in the procurement space. And Vikram will be running a demo, and then we'll wrap it up with a case study and a summary. All right. Very quickly about ourselves, WNS-Vuram, founded in 2011. We are a hyperautomation specialist, and we have Microsoft, ServiceNow, Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Appian, and other companies as our premier partners. We have done more than 1,000 plus projects so far on low code and hyperautomation. And a couple of years back, Vuram got acquired by WNS, which is our parent company. WNS has about 60,000 employees globally and with a revenue of about 1.3 billion. So a little bit more about some of the awards that we have won over the years. HFS, from the analyst point of view, HFS, Everest, and ISG, they have all recognized us, and we have won a few awards from our partner organizations, whether it is Appian, Abby, or UiPath. And also, we have been recognized by some of the popular business magazines, and such as Inc. 500, Fast Company, etc. All right, so without much further ado, we'll get into the topic here, procurement landscape, and what are some of the key challenges that are going on. Well, the number one thing is procurement generally happens to be looked at as a transactional process. There's a department which does procurement, and it is not very common for procurement to seen as a strategic function. And that's exactly what McKinsey and other analysts are saying. Procurement should be looked at as a strategic operation. The reasons are pretty obvious. We have had the pandemic 3-4 years back, and which created a huge supply shock, and we have wars going on globally. So if you are in a company which is fast expanding, you may have your footprint in the US, but you may have a nearshoring operation, offshoring, and you may have a strategy to work with other partners. So the laws are different, the rules, the business rules are different, and you need to ensure that your suppliers and just like your consumers are important, your supplier strategy is also quite important. So organizations which look at procurement as a strategic choice, according to McKinsey, they bring up to about 20% of cost savings and an efficiency improvement of about 30%. So the first point is, do not look at procurement, especially if your organization is large and growing, do not look at procurement as a mere operational challenge, but elevate it to a strategic operation, and then you can actually look at a few, how to leverage the efficiency and the cost gain. Now, some of the challenges that traditional procurement platforms face, the first one I want to highlight is data and analytics. Again, this goes back to the operational challenge that we talked about. A lot of companies look at procurement through insights and gut feel, and it is not very common for companies to collect important data, metrics, and SLAs and analytics. Even things like spend management, for example, is done in a very heuristics way, and this can lead to underperformance. The second problem that we often come across when we talk to our customers is procurement is a very, very complex process. You may have your consumers in Asia or Mexico or in Africa. You may have your suppliers in another region. And you may have compliance and regulatory rules coming from different companies where you have your operations, where your suppliers have operations. You may have to deal with multiple systems, and we'll talk a little bit deeper about it. Consequently, over the years, we have seen customers actually look at procurement as an evolutionary process. Multiple systems, half a dozen plus systems actually are used to manage the entire process, which creates silos and bottlenecks and friction in terms of how you operate. So a fragmented process is often seen as probably the number one reason why procurement has friction. And of course, yeah, supply risk management is very critical. Just to give an example, ESG is a very hot topic today, and your organization may have an ESG goal, not just for your enterprise, but also for your suppliers. And so are you managing your suppliers, with the same breadth as how you would want to manage your internal ESG operations? Do you have visibility into how the suppliers are actually managing their ESG operations? Or for that matter, there can be other risks such as is there child labor involved in their manufacturing process? How do you even know that these kind of risks can be mitigated? And so you need a very robust risk management strategy. Not to mention, leveraging AI and Gen AI can bring significant benefit. We'll talk about one of the core themes of this webinar, which is left shifting of your operations. And we'll show you how AI and Gen AI in particular can help not only streamline your operations, but can also lower the price point at which you can offer better services. So I talked about the fragmentation process, problem here, and here is an example of how complex the procurement process can be. For example, we are seeing multiple systems here. You may be using an SAP, you may be using an Ariba for your system of records. You could be using HighRadius for some of your financial processing. You could be using Blackline. You could be using Tableau for reporting. So essentially, it's not very common to come across half a dozen plus systems, which leads to what we call as a spaghetti operation. It's not efficient. It leads to gap in your process. Information is siloed, multiple teams, multiple specialization, et cetera, et cetera. To me, this is the number one problem, that you need to be looking at. The net result, if I were to summarize this, there are some which creates a very high impact. For example, it can have a very strong reputational damage. For example, especially in situations where you have your suppliers are not meeting to certain regulatory challenges, it can lead to your enterprise being dragged into the whole PR issue, and it can create a reputational damage. On the other hand, there are some operations which can lead to very high cost overbearance. For example, you may be overpaying for your goods and services, and so streamlining your spend management is also very, very efficient, very, 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 very much required. So in a nutshell, what you need is a high quality procurement platform. And we like to make the case for why ServiceNow, can fit the bill here. Now I'll talk about the number one criteria. We talked about fragmented process, fragmented technology, siloed operations. So what you really need is a unified modern procurement system. So you need a system where all of your operations can be streamlined into one framework, one process, one technology, whereby you can also bring all your teams together to achieve the visibility in a frictionless manner. And we'll show you a demo. We'll demonstrate why and how ServiceNow achieves this particular process here. But a unified modern procurement system is absolutely the underlying necessity if you are to embark on a modern platform here. Second one, there has to be a very strong collaboration. I would argue not just with suppliers, but also with your internal business teams and with your consumers, internal consumers. So there has to be the process will have to be transparent. You'll have to have very, very efficient process to onboard, offboard, both products, employees, as well as vendors. So the streamlining of your operations is critical. Data-driven decision making, I talked about this. We'll show you some, during our demo, how data-rich decision making can really, really help you in terms of getting all the right analytics to make the right decision. So those are some of the key things we want to talk about. And obviously, automation is something. For example, if you want to lower the cost of operations, using, say, for example, for your invoice processing or for your purchase order processing, etc., the more automation that you can bring in, the more meaningful automation you can bring in, the more, the lower you can have your operational price point. Okay, so from a ServiceNow standpoint, again, this is something we have been talking about, the spaghetti process, complex, multiple technologies. And when you look at the right-hand side in terms of how a unified platform will look like, Let's start with the middle here, which is where all of your procurement model, we talked about half a dozen, maybe a dozen plus technology and systems coming into place, all the way from sourcing to contract management to onboarding to offboarding, ESG, placing an order, invoice processing, financials, spend management, all of that integrated into one software rather than using, multiple systems and technology. This is the crux of what ServiceNow offers. Now, this creates, like I said, a very, very frictionless experience for all your users. Who are your users? It could be your internal business user. It could be your procurement manager. It could be a vendor risk, somebody from your vendor risk management team, somebody from your project management office who is, responsible for all the projections and, all the budgetary calculations, etc. So they can all be part of the same system with extremely well-defined role-based access and security in place. And when you come down, we are not asking you to throw away all your investments. We understand you will have a ERP or existing systems of records, whether it is Coupa or Ariba or Oracle or ServiceNow or any of these platforms. ServiceNow can, out of the box, integrate with any of these systems, and you can still function very effectively, very efficiently. So the architecture looks like this. At the bottom, these are the integration layers, whether it is with SAPs of the world or Coupas of the world. And then ServiceNow within the procurement module offers multiple sub-modules. Sourcing and procurement, whether it is from source to pay or accounts payable, or we talked about portfolio management, when from a planning perspective, from a financial planning, cost, budget management, all of this is available as sub-modules within the procurement space. And then customer service, these days internal customers would like to reach through multiple channels. It could be an IVR, it could be your chat, your teams can be a source of your procurement operations. Obviously, everything has to be case managed, your incidents have to be logged, and any change management has to happen. So all of that, there's a very strong customer service management. And not to mention the app engine provides a very robust platform for you to customize. So we're not saying you should take the product and implement it as is. You can bring your own business rules. You can bake in your own integrations. You can actually customize it, the workflow, you can customize it to the way you want. So while it accelerates your time to deploy, it also allows you to customize. So it gives a good balance between customization and ready to roll out and ready to consume. If you go up the stack, there are a lot of modules for whether it is for reporting, whether it is for agent-based engagement. So there are many, many things that comes out of the box. And we talked about multiple actors here, multiple users from all the way from business consumers to CPO. All of the users can actually log into one holistic platform and they will get the benefit of it. Very quickly, we'll touch upon AI. So the number of areas where AI is, plays a very key role here. I talked about categorization and evaluation. So you can have models that actually it trains itself on the data about your spend management, and it can, it can help you operate better. You can have automated RFP generation as part of your operation. So you no longer have to tick and apply for every single questionnaire. Rather, you can have a better response through automated RFP generation. You can have intelligent document processing, and I touched upon invoice processing, purchase order processing, etc. Contracts is another big area. Now with Gen AI, contract management is extremely efficient and streamlined. And so you can see this AI intervening in almost every single facet of it. Now, the benefit that AI actually brings in, to start with, I would argue that, we're going to show you how ServiceNow gives you a better user experience from a procurement standpoint. How about, we show you an example of how customers can actually procure using chatbots. So you no longer have to you're not restricted to just log in and browse and search for products, etc. You can just query for your product. The system will tell you what is available, what are the, how much of it is in stock, what is the price. Not only that, it can also recommend you alternative products and platforms. So the whole user experience is actually very, very self-centered. You don't have to rely on your operations team, your procurement team to tell you what products are available, what inventory is available, what price points, etc., etc. Obviously, everything is baked into a extremely strong, robust process management. So a case is created out of the box. You get a 360-degree view, both the consumer as well as operations people will get a 360-degree view. And we'll show this in the demo. And again, GenAI is great when it comes to creating contextual knowledge. So you can actually ask questions on existing statement of purpose, or if you have a business rule or policy. Let's take, for example, as a consumer, as an internal employee, you want to place an order for your laptop. Let's say you've been with the company for 3 years and your laptop is getting slow and you are thinking of getting a Mac laptop. Oftentimes, you don't. Many employees are not even aware of what is the policy or what are the eligibility criteria. Rather than having to call the procurement team and ask them for the eligibility and whether you can purchase a Mac, whether you are eligible with 3 years of being in the company, and so on and so forth. What if the system could actually tell you? So this is what we call as left shifting of the experience. A lot of what customer interactions can be done, can be self-served just by the system, and you don't need the operation team to be embedded in every single facet. So what we're going to do from a demo standpoint, we're going to take a few roles here. Especially, we're going to talk about what is a user experience from a business consumer standpoint. How does a vendor manager, look at the whole operations, and what does a procurement specialist do, in order to streamline these operations. So we'll start with the business consumer. I said, product discovery. The users can discover products, users can query the availability, pricing, etc., etc. And not only that, once the order is placed, the entire life cycle can be managed. I mean, it can be made visible. So how long is the latency? Is there a bottleneck somewhere? Has the approval been taken? So users don't have to come to the operations team, or they don't have to email anyone. Just by using conversational AI and bots, they gain the visibility. And similarly, if you go to the procurement specialist, that is, they can actually streamline the procure to pay process. I talked about, the processes can change in the growing organizations. You may be onboarding new employees. The policies can change very rapidly. And so you should be able to actually adjust your process, adjust your SLAs, and the system should be able to accommodate all of it. Budgeting and costing, again, very, very important. We'll look at a demo in terms of how the dashboards can actually help you. And I also touched upon operational efficiency, where a bulk of operations, which was predominantly done by the procurement team, can now be self-served by business consumers. So this takes a huge pressure off of the operations team, who can focus on more value-added tasks, giving better experience for the consumer. Now, when we talk about vendor manager, we are going to show you how a vendor manager can curate vendors, products, do a risk assessment, and also do onboarding and offboarding of various vendors. With that, we'll now head over to the demo. Vikram, over to you for the demo.
Sure. Thank you, Naren. I'll share my screen. All right. So as Naren mentioned, we'll be talking about three personas today. From the ServiceNow solution perspective, the solution name is source to pay operations. We're talking about three personas. Lizzie Derek Rosas, she's a business consumer. She comes to the portal and she orders a product or a service, right? And then Warren Summers comes in. He's a procurement specialist. He reviews the product ordered by Lisa, creates a purchase order, reviews the dashboards. And then finally, we'll move on to Deanna. Deanna is a vendor manager. She orders a product as a service and performs vendor risk assessments as well. So having said that, let me go to the portal. So this is Lizzie, right? Business consumer. She comes to the portal and she can usually, browse through any purchase requests she has made in the past. But as Naren referred to, the self-serve options. So Lizzie comes to the virtual agent, which is a feature from ServiceNow, and start interactions with the virtual agent. Let's say she starts with her first interaction here, and she's actually going to order a particular product. Let's see how simple it is. So she's going to procure a product. And then what is the product she's looking for? Well, let's say she's looking for a microphone. Right, so microphone. You see this, right? How her guided experience is. Now she has been provided multiple options in terms of what kind of microphone the system is suggesting. Let's say she go ahead and suggest and selects a particular microphone. And then, it guides her through in terms of which supplier this particular microphone is available from. Let's say she selects yes here, and she's guided from a pricing perspective. She said, okay, let's go ahead for this particular price. She views the product, and then she can select whether this can be delivered to some other location. In this case, she goes and select a predefined location. How many units she needs for this product? Let's say 2 of them. And then what is the date she would like to deliver. So let's go ahead and select that. And why do you want to make this purchase? So let's say she needs it for a conference room. All right. Now she can review her purchase, right? What she has made so far, and if she wants to make any changes, she can do that. Otherwise, she just says everything is correct. Okay, it's as simple as that. So she has made this, purchase request is completed. Now this purchase request actually has moved on to Warren. We will move there. There could be an approval in between because she's a supervisor herself. So she doesn't need another level of approval, but that can be configured and customized within the solution. So now I'll move on to the next persona. His name is Warren Summers. He's a procurement specialist, and he will review the product which has been ordered by Lizzie. So let me now log in as Warren. So I'm going here to log in as Warren. Okay, as I do that, let me go to the workspace. All right, so this is Warren's dashboard, right? He can review all his previous or current task items, and we can see the leases request here. This is 1032. And he can see this purchase request, right, which is just paid by Lizzie as a business owner. So now there would be, certain related work, right, which is associated with each purchase item. So let's see what kind of actions which, Warren has today. So here there is a purchase line associated with this particular purchase request, and we see that there's a PR, which is this is a GL account information is missing with respect to this purchase request. So let's go ahead and see what is missing here. So there are a couple of GL accounting related account codes which are missing. Let's go ahead and update these account details, the CapEx account and the expense account. Once done, let me save this. All right, this entry is saved. Let me go back and mark this item as complete. All right, as soon as this item is completed, let me go back to this particular process. Let me refresh this. And we see this, right? So this particular request has now moved to final review stage. Now, Warren can create a purchase order. So let's go ahead and create a purchase order for this particular request. Okay, there is a mandatory field missing. So let's go ahead and update that. There's a legal entity. So there's a validation here. Let's update the legal entity name. And now we can go ahead and create the purchase order. All right, so we see that the purchase order has been created successfully, right? This request will now move on from payments and accounts payable perspective. So that's one side of the entire ServiceNow solution. So accounts payable is another module which is out of the scope of today's demo. Now we will then spoke about how reporting, analytics, and dashboards are important, right? So let's go ahead and see certain dashboards which Warren has access to. So in this, you know, um, solution, Warren has access to multiple dashboards. So since Warren manages a department, he can see strategic operations and SLA level dashboards from his team perspective, right? He can see the total spend which has made, what kind of spend categorization, what is the total amount of savings, right? What negotiation outcome has happened. From an operation perspective, he can see again how many sourcing requests have come, what are the open negotiations, and so on. And at the same time, he can see the SLAs as well, right? And this is like a strategical dashboard. He can see his own dashboard as well with respect to what work he has done so far and what kind of achievements he has made. And again, um, the year-to-date spend which has been made, what kind of total savings is made. You can drill down further to a particular number, let's say what kind of total savings, and he can further go to individual data points to see, okay, what was the starting unit price and what was the negotiated unit price, and based on that he can identify why certain pricing in of why certain negotiated pricing has been beneficial in order to make the savings. So, and at the same time, Warren can also create new dashboards. He can, duplicate certain, reports or dashboard and share that with his colleagues as well. So now we saw how Lizzie, ordered a particular product. Warren created a particular purchase order, and then he saw his dashboard, and then now we will move on to Deanna. Right, Deanna is a vendor manager, and she will perform a vendor risk assessment. So let's go back, and then let me log in as Deanna. Right. So let me go ahead and log in as Deanna Gerby. Okay, let me go to Deanna's workspace. Okay, so this is Deanna's dashboard, where she can see what all vendors he has been working with, or if there are certain vendors which has already been onboarded, or which vendors are being currently onboarded. So let's go ahead and see what our suppliers are there in her list. Let's see, she has already started onboarding a vendor called NVIDIA, right? We can see the status onboarding for this particular vendor, and let's see what kind of related work which is pending for this vendor. So again, Nayan spoke about vendor risk assessments, and we'll see how the risk assessments are being done for any particular vendor onboarding scenarios. So they are, couple of cases associated, sub cases or child cases associated with this particular onboarding request. One is on onboarding new supplier, and the second one is on the due diligence part. ServiceNow has a feature called playbooks, which gives us the milestones with respect to individual milestones on each point in time of the cases. So, for example, when registration happened for a particular vendor, there were certain checks and balances of showing particular showing whether there are duplicate suppliers in the system, if the supply information is correct or not. So the registration part is completed. Now is the qualification part where this is waiting for the risk assessment to be completed. And this is the second child case we were talking about, and for conducting the due diligence. So let's go to the due diligence part of things, right? And then let's see what's happening in the due diligence. Okay, so we come here in the due diligence part. There are two types of due diligence or risk assessment. One is inherent, right, which is internal, and the third party risk assessment, right, which is external. So there are questionnaires associated with both inherent or internal risk assessment and the third party risk assessment as well. So as soon as both of them are done, there are questions are being answered, and there are risk intelligence scores which comes in. As soon as those are calculated, the process further moves on, and the further onboarding of the supplier moves on into the next stages or next phases. So this is how Deanna is able to assess, onboard, assess the risk for a supplier, and then move on in the source to pay journey, and the same supplier then further can be used to order a particular product. So yeah, hope this gave a fair idea in terms of the entire source to pay process in different personas and roles we spoke about. Thank you, and this is part of the demo today. Back to you, Naren.
Thank you, Vikram. Thanks for the wonderful demo. So as you can see, imagine a fairly large operations. Yeah, fairly large. Imagine, you can manage a fairly large operations, and you can actually not only roll out this entire program within a short period, but you can also customize it to the way we want. And that's exactly what one of our customers, a leading global bank, has done using ServiceNow. This is a banking customer with operations in more than 100 locations. And the scale of operations, as you can see, just in UK alone, they have about 30,000 users. And the expected transformation is to hit 120 countries. So massive rollout of procurement operations, which means you have to understand the complexity in terms of the amount of contract paperwork that is required, the amount of variations that are required, the number of products they have to make available, the number of vendors. So all of this complexity managed using ServiceNow. Now, such a complex operation, within the first year of rollout, the vendor wants to consolidate more than 35. Erstwhile, there were about 35 applications, and as they roll out, they want to consolidate it to 20 and further down. So the UK rollout is expected to happen within 12 months, which is a fairly aggressive schedule. And this is possible because ServiceNow has out-of-the-box capabilities for many of these operations. And we saw some of them in terms of the various modules or the sub-modules that it covered in one of the earlier slides. So that's an example. In the interest of time, we'll move on. But it's perfectly possible, whether you are a small to medium enterprise or a large enterprise, it's perfectly possible for you to use ServiceNow. You can then use out-of-the-box functionalities, or you can customize it to the way you want. So that essentially brings us to the end of this session. Just on a few takeaway keynotes as to what we discussed so far. Please treat procurement not as an operational function, but as a strategic function, especially if you're a medium to large size organization expanding very rapidly, growing in multiple locations with both employees and vendors growing all the time. So you have to look at it more as a strategic function. And then the other important point is do not deal with half a dozen or a dozen plus systems with different silos coming in. Rather, look for a unified platform such as ServiceNow, and one that comes with out-of-the-box capabilities, but also allows you to customize it the way you want your operations to happen. Then we talked about how can you lower your operational price point. There are efficiency gains that we touched upon, whereby you can left shift the operations, where we showed you, for example, a business consumer not having to wait for the procurement team for all the answers, but interacting with the system to make sure they're getting what they need. So this left shifting process can save a lot of operational costs and drive efficiency for you. And lastly, we talked about how data-driven insights, is better compared to taking gut check and performing your operations through merely gut and experience. So whichever platform you're considering, and we would like to say ServiceNow is a perfect fit, but whatever platform you're considering, keep these factors in mind as you roll out your automation. With that, we sign off here. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.